What an honor it is to be here to share some ideas and some thoughts with you. In my role as Director of Cultural Programs at the National Academy of Sciences, my observations over the past 20 years, I've had the opportunity to see how integrative approaches to learning can impact research in both the sciences and the arts, and the potential benefits for fostering lifetime learners, sparking curiosity and wonder for all ages. And I hope that in the next 10 minutes, I can hang a few ideas in this space for your contemplation and discussion. As a person with my background in the arts, I value the potential of an elegant and well-crafted question. So I will try to insert provocations, questions for further consideration that might help prompt conversation as you go into your breakout rooms. And don't worry, I'll gather all of the questions at the end in a slide so that you don't have to worry too much about taking notes. So, on to the next slide. I'd like to start with a personal story. This is Seva, short for Sebastian. I consider his family to be my extended family here on the East Coast. And in this photo, Seva is around 9 years old. He's about 15 now. Since I first met Seva, he has had a love for cooking. Not just helping his mother in the kitchen, but baking, cooking, and experimenting with food. And in fact, in this photo, he is holding a bowl of Brazilian cheese bread that he and I made together, pão de queijo. Uh, a really innovative, curious kid. I remember a few Christmases ago, he asked me to cook with him. I said, sure, what are we going to cook? He said, beef Wellington. And he did it, and it was delicious. And I'm not talking about that it was delicious for a kid. It was probably one of the best that I've ever had. Now, I tell this story to say this. Seva struggles in school. He was told that he is bad in math by his teachers, so much so that he has accepted this label, bad at math. Yet he learns math, not to mention chemistry, intuitively every time that he bakes. He is curious and innovative, yet he doesn't learn well in the classroom environment. Now, as he thinks about life after high school, he has dreams of studying the culinary arts in Italy. To me, this story begs the question, if we put a child in a learning environment that isn't working, how productive is it to blame the child for not learning? How can we foster a pipeline to support creativity and curiosity? Perhaps this is preaching to the choir with this group, but part of the answer may lie in integrative learning. We talk about this as being STEM versus STEAM, but I'd like to say that it is more than that. It's more than just the labels. It is training the elasticity of mind, a mind that is responsive to a changing environment, that pulls from and applies knowledge from a variety of different sources, a mind that is curious and filled with wonder. So, in his books, Julio Otino, who's a scientist and an engineer, argues that this elasticity of mind is critical in navigating a complex world. He writes, we must adopt new ways of thinking and working that cross the boundaries of classical knowledge and practice. Creativity must increase and execution must excel. How can we augment our thinking spaces to increase creative solutions? How can we make those solutions real by mastering complexity, by working at the nexus where art, technology, and science converge? So in the context of today's discussion, we might ask, how can we create spaces for the elastic mind? This is a call to action from Dr. Otino, not just within the education and what we're thinking about, but also thinking about it in long terms. I'd like to maybe go on to the next slide as a bit of a context for those of you who might not know about the work of the National Academy of Sciences, which is where I work, where I have the honor of being the director of the arts program. The NAS is a nonprofit, non-government institution that provides independent, objective advice to policymakers and to the public for the benefit of society. And one way that the Academy serves society is through the creation of consensus studies such as this one, Branches from the Same Tree. This was a consensus study that published in 2018 and was created by the Academy's Board on Higher Education. As an aside, all of the Academy's reports are free and accessible online through the National Academies Press website. The committee that authored this study chose this definition of integrative learning: the demonstrated ability to connect, apply, and/or synthesize information coherently from disparate contexts and perspectives, and make use of these new insights in multiple contexts. In its exploration, the committee was careful to examine both the value of integration of STEM curricula and labs into academic arts and humanities programs, as well as evidence regarding the values of integrating arts and humanities into STEM educational courses and programs. So next slide. Okay, in the same spirit of the quote I read by Julio earlier, the committee looked at the potential for integrative learning to prepare students with the skills and competencies needed to tackle the grand and complex challenges: pandemics, climate change, conservation, mental health, and so many other challenges facing society call for an approach that integrates across the many forms of human learning and knowledge creation, fostering the elasticity of mind. And the committee also considered the potential of integrative learning to prepare students for a changing work environment. Employers are increasingly looking for graduates to come out of academic institutions with a set of core competencies and skills, including skills in oral and written communication, problem-solving skills, empathy, which is so important, tolerance for ambiguity, and creativity. Though the evidence is still emergent and is anecdotal, existing studies suggest that integrative learning supports the development of these skills in students. Ultimately, the committee offered a range of recommendations targeted at higher education, government, and industry that call for these institutions to sustain ongoing integrative efforts that has shown promise, including but not limited to new integrative models of general education, to provide resources for hiring, for training faculty and development professionals to be able to teach integrative courses. And most important to me, in my opinion, is evaluating to have these programs that are lasting for long enough of a time period that we can gather information, that we can gather data, and evaluate the impact of these to help build support for other future programming. And I'd like to wrap up on the next slide just by putting some of the questions and provocations here in one place. And I hope that these are questions that might benefit you. If they're not the questions, maybe they can help evolve and create a more elegant question. I think questions help us find our way. And I'm also asking for a few more resources from my colleagues at the K through 12 at the academies. They've sent me over some other reports that I think would be of interest to this particular group. So if we could go on to the next slide, I'd like to end with an example and a short video of a project that we did earlier this year in celebration of the NAS building's 100th anniversary. This project was led by educator Ben Volta, a former member of the Tim Rollins and KOS Collaborative, and the students at Locke Elementary in West Philadelphia. They explored the history of science over the past 100 years through art making. And this project incorporated art making education in order to build self-confidence and to encourage students to think of themselves as a generator of ideals and fostering creativity. Ben Volta will talk a little bit more in the video about the project.
This artwork, Promethean Sparks, was inspired by artworks here at the National Academy of Sciences. The Albert Herder mural of Prometheus and Hilbert Mier's Golden Dome. As we looked at these artworks, we grabbed certain graphic elements that start to visualize fire and sparks. We started to look at the Golden Dome and look at all the images of really science as it was illustrated 100 years ago. But how can we imagine science today? How we can put different science disciplines together to create new creative sparks. So it would actually be a research project in that we're drawing and really allowing the artistic process to be one of discovery and exploration. Working with the kids really is all about process. So it's about education in many ways as a medium. So we are working with these great historic artworks at the Academy. We're drawing imagery from that. We're thinking about how this relates to our lives now. We don't know where this is going. This is art. It doesn't exist yet. But through this process, we're going to have something beautiful that comes out of it.
So I'll conclude with that. My email is here. I will also be looking for questions in the chat, and I'll respond as quickly as I'm able. If not today, then maybe via email. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all.